Pocket Watch, Part 2. Duck had his ultimate plan. He was a big fan of the film Ocean's 11 and loved the story of the great train robbery. "I will be a millionaire," he yelled excitedly. The next day he went to the bank near his home with a huge rucksack. He walked in and sat down and watched the staff counting the money. He took out the watch and pushed the plunger. Everything stopped. He casually walked around to the other side of the counter and started to put money into his rucksack. He giggled as he counted. 100 million, 200 million. Then he got home. He stuffed the money into his wardrobe and then went back. The people were still the same, frozen in time like statues. He collected over 6 billion in Vietnam dong and 60,000 in dollars. When he had put the money into his wardrobe, he closed the watch again and waited patiently. A few minutes later, police arrived at the bank. Not just one or two cars, but what looked like the whole police force. He watched as the police walked around scratching their heads in confusion. That evening, he watched a film on the TV about poor people in Vietnam, and guilt filled his heart. "I will share this money with the poor. I can always get more money for me," he thought. The next morning, he hired a taxi and went into the countryside. He gave each family 100 million Vietnam dong until the money was all gone, and then went back to Hanoi. He did this for months, stealing money at lunchtime and delivering it to the poor in the afternoon, until one day there was a news report about the Vietnamese economy. His actions had damaged the government, and all people in Vietnam would be worse off. Duc decided that it was time to stop. "This will be the last one last time for me," he thought as he walked into the ANZ Bank. He made sure that he had filled the bag to the top with any currency that he could find. When he got home, he counted the money. $6,200,000. "That should be enough," he said happily while shoving it into his wardrobe. He closed the pocket watch and put it into his drawer. He enjoyed spending the money. He bought a huge house near the lake. With the money that came beautiful girls and a luxury lifestyle that others can only dream of. A few years passed by. He was a very happy man. He married Miss Vietnam from 2012 and had Miss Vietnam 2013 his girlfriend. He drove a black Hummer and lived up to his nickname of 50 Cent. He pulled the old pocket watch from the drawer and gave it a rub on his sleeve. "Well, old friend, it's time to go shopping again," he said as he pushed the watch into his pocket and headed for the nearest American bank. He walked back and forth from the bank to his car until he had emptied the bank completely, and his car was filled to the top with cash. He looked around one time and made his escape before jumping into his Hummer. He slammed the door, and as he did, something made a horrible crunching sound against the door frame. He glanced down and could not believe what he was seeing. In his haste to get away, he had forgotten about the watch sticking out of his pocket, and it had got caught between the door and the frame. He opened the door carefully, and his heart sank with misery as the watch fell to the floor. The watch was damaged, bent, and broken, and still open. He picked it up and gently pushed it closed, but everything's still the same. He tried again and again, but time did not move. Duc drove around the city looking for a sign of life, but there was nothing. Even the birds in the sky were frozen in time like a photograph. Then for some reason he returned to his old teacher's home. When he arrived, the gate was already open, and just inside the cleaner was standing holding a broom. He walked inside and followed the stairs, past Miss Hang and Fung Ang, and into the classroom. At the desk sat his old teacher. He had not seen him for almost 5 years, but he looked just as young and handsome as before. He walked over and looked into his eyes. "Boo!" yelled the teacher. Duck fell backwards onto the floor. "I thought you were frozen too," Duck yelled in disbelief. The wise and handsome teacher leaned forward in his chair and said, "It was my watch. It does not work on me." Duck explained everything and told him about the last few years. The teacher listened and then said, "I did not give you the watch for your own personal gain. I gave it to you to help you to study. It was intended to help you to have more time for studying." Duck pleaded with his teacher for help, but the teacher was happy with things the way they were now. "It's lovely and quiet now. My wife has finally stopped moaning about my weight." The teacher sighed and said, "Okay, give me the watch back and I'll fix it. I'm ready to go home and wait." A few days later, everything went back to normal, but sometimes Duck notices that time stops, and he knows that his teacher is either visiting the bank or that his wife is moaning at him again. The end. Thanks for listening. Join me again next time.